Today we are going to talk about mean absolute deviation, also known as MAD. So, first and foremost, how do we find the mean absolute deviation of a data set? So first of all, let's start with this data set that consists of 10 numbers. So there are two main parts to solving for the MAD. The first part, of course, is finding the mean. And so how do I find the mean? Two easy steps. First of all, I add all of my numbers together, which again would be 1 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 2, which gives me my answer of 30. The second step, of course, to finding my mean is taking that 30 and dividing it by 10. So why am I taking this 30 and dividing it by 10? Because I have 10 numbers in my data set. And so when I divide 30 by 10, I have a mean of 3. Now, that's the first step in finding my MAD, but there's a second step. And so how do I do this second part? This again also has a few steps. So first of all, you want to subtract the mean, which we just calculated, from each number in the data set. And so in this case, I would start off with the numbers in the data set, and I subtract the mean from each and every single one of the numbers. So in this case, if I look row by row, I have 1 minus 3, which is the absolute value of 2. So you might say, well, why are you putting the absolute value? Because when we go through to figure out our MAD, we have to use the absolute value because some of our numbers will be negative. And in this case, we can eliminate the negative numbers by using the absolute value. So in this case, when I take the absolute value of -2, it becomes 2. The same with the absolute value of 0, it remains 0. If it's a positive number, the absolute value, in this case of 1, would still remain as 1. And so then, once we've found the absolute value, and once we've converted the numbers over, we can continue to our next step, which again is finding the mean with the new data set. The new data set, of course, being this set of numbers. So how do we find the mean? Again, we're adding up all of those numbers. So we're adding 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1, which gives me a total of 14. Now, we're not quite done yet. We have one more step, again, because we're basically finding the mean twice to solve for the mean absolute deviation. So we're taking this total that we found in step number 2, and we're dividing that total by the total number of data in the data set. And in this case, how many numbers do we have in the data set? 10. So now when I divide my total, I have 14, which again I found in step number 2, divided by 10, the number of numbers in the data set, and my mean absolute deviation, better known as my MAD, is 1.4. Pretty simple, right? All right, so this is practice time where you have the chance to try to solve for the MAD on your own. So what I suggest is that when we have the equation up, pause the video and try to solve the equation, and then we will go over the answers. So the mean absolute deviation data set that you have is 7, 3, 9, 10, 15, 16, 21, 28, 11, and 14. So this is the time that you should pause this video to try to find the mean absolute deviation on your own. At this point, you should have unpaused your video, and let's go over the mean absolute deviation and how we can solve this equation. So like the example that we did previously, we'll start with the first part, which is just going through and finding the mean of the data set. So again, to find the mean of the data set, you add all of your numbers. So 7 plus 3 plus 9 plus 10 plus 15 plus 16 plus 21 plus 28 plus 11 plus 14. That gives us a pretty large number of 134. And now, of course, what's our next step? I have to divide that 134 by 10. Why 10? Again, in my data set, I have 10 numbers total. And so where do I get that 134? Again, from back in step number 1. So 134 divided by 10 is 13.4. But wait, there's more, because we've only solved the mean, but we have to find the mean absolute deviation of the data set. So step 1 for finding the MAD, you have to subtract the mean, which we had on the previous part, from each number in the data set. And again, your mean is the second number in your data set that's being subtracted. So in this case, we've already gone through and done this. So we have 7 minus 13.4, which gives me the absolute value of negative 6.4. And again, if we have a number that is a negative absolute value, when I go through and simplify the absolute value, my numbers all become positive. So in this case, I have my data set, and this is my new data set, but I'm not finished yet. So I need to go on to step 2, which again is finding the mean of this new data set. And so how do I do that? I add the numbers together. So I add again 6.4 plus 10.4 plus 4.4 plus 3.4 plus 1.6 plus 2.6 plus 7.6 plus 14.6 plus 2.4 plus 0.6. That gives me my answer of 54. And so the last step is to divide this 54, this total, by the total amount of numbers in the data set, which we know, of course, that that total amount is 10. So in this case, if I divide 54 by 10, I have a MAD of 5.4. And it's that easy, everybody.